Aramaic secret to overcoming insecurity. What if your insecurity is not evidence that you are weak, but proof that something inside you has been disconnected from its original state for centuries? One Aramaic word spoken in the world of Jesus carried a meaning far deeper than the English word peace. It described the return of the divided soul to wholeness, the end of inner conflict, and the restoration of a security that circumstances cannot control. That word is shlama. Once you understand what Jesus was truly offering when he spoke peace over frightened people, you may realize that insecurity was never meant to become your identity. Stay until the final chapter, because you will receive a simple daily protocol for beginning this restoration within yourself. For centuries, the teachings of Jesus reached the world through Greek, Latin, and later European translations, while the sound and cultural depth of his Aramaic environment became increasingly distant. In 1945, near Nag Hammadi in Egypt, a collection of ancient Christian writings was discovered buried inside a sealed jar. These texts, written primarily in Coptic and excluded from the official biblical canon, revealed the extraordinary diversity of early Christian spirituality. They did not preserve secret recordings of the voice of Jesus, but they renewed interest in the mystical, symbolic, and inward dimensions of his teachings. Their discovery reminded the modern world that early followers often understood salvation not merely as belief, but as awakening, restoration, and direct knowledge of the divine. To understand why the original language matters, we must return to the villages, roads, and gathering places where Jesus taught. Aramaic was the living language of ordinary people. It was the language heard in homes, marketplaces, prayers, grief, blessing, and healing. Hebrew carried sacred importance, while Greek served wider political and commercial worlds. But Aramaic reached directly into daily human experience. Ancient people often understood spoken words as more than intellectual definitions. A word carried breath, intention, emotional force, and the determination of the speaker. Sound was not separated from meaning. The voice, breath, and inward state formed one act. This is why the pronunciation of shlama, meaning peace, wholeness, harmony, restoration, and inner completeness matters so deeply within this teaching. Speaking it slowly is believed by many spiritual seekers to awaken the memory of an original state beneath fear and fragmentation. Some describe this poetically as reconnecting with our original design or spiritual DNA, the deepest pattern of the soul before rejection, comparison, and anxiety taught it to feel incomplete. Insecurity begins with division. One part of you wants to move forward, while another predicts failure. One part longs to speak, while another fears judgment. You may desire connection but expect rejection, seek purpose but doubt your worth, or receive an opportunity while secretly believing someone else deserves it more. The modern meaning of peace often suggests temporary calm. Shlama reveals something greater. It is not merely the absence of conflict. It is the restoration of everything that has been separated within you. When Jesus offered peace, he was not promising a life without opposition. He was calling the human being back into inward unity. The Gospel of John, chapter 14, preserves this distinction when Jesus speaks of a peace unlike the peace offered by the world. The world gives security only when conditions appear favorable. Shlama begins before conditions change. It restores the center from which you see them. Insecurity rarely announces itself openly. It hides behind overthinking, perfectionism, hesitation, comparison, and the exhausting need to be approved. It can make a capable person remain silent, a gifted person avoid beginning, and a loving person withdraw before anyone has the opportunity to reject them. The deepest danger is not simply discomfort. Insecurity gradually persuades you to build your identity around imagined judgments. You begin seeing yourself through the eyes of people who may not understand you. Their silence becomes rejection. Their success becomes proof of your inadequacy. Their criticism becomes a sentence you continue repeating long after they have forgotten speaking it. But Jesus never built identity upon public opinion. He understood that a person who depends entirely upon external approval can never experience lasting peace. Praise will temporarily lift them, criticism will immediately break them, and comparison will keep them moving between pride and shame. This is where shlama becomes a direct answer to insecurity. Shlama meaning inner wholeness, restored harmony, and peace rooted in completeness does not teach you to become better than others. It frees you from needing comparison in order to know your worth. Imagine a clay vessel broken into several pieces. Painting each fragment beautifully does not restore the vessel. Every piece must be brought back into relationship with the others. In the same way, positive words alone cannot heal insecurity when the deeper self remains divided. One part of you may believe you are loved, while another remembers abandonment. One part may understand your gifts, while another still hears the voice of someone who belittled you. You cannot silence these wounds through force. They must be met, understood, and reintegrated. The ancient meaning of shlama points toward this integration. It invites the frightened part, the confident part, the wounded part, and the hopeful part to return to one spiritual center. In that center, your identity no longer depends upon being the most admired person in the room. It rests in the knowledge that your existence already carries meaning. This changes how you enter relationships, opportunities, and uncertainty. You no longer ask, "Will everyone approve of me?" You begin asking, "Can I remain whole even when someone misunderstands me?" That is a far greater form of security. The teaching of Jesus does not demand that you eliminate every uncomfortable feeling before acting. It teaches you to move without abandoning your center. Courage is not the disappearance of insecurity. It is the refusal to let insecurity become your master. And there is an even deeper reason why shlama was connected to healing. In the coming chapters, you will discover how insecurity affects the body, the decisions you make, and even the spiritual authority you believe you are allowed to carry. If this teaching already feels this deep, imagine having a full guide with deeper explanations of JESUS's true teachings in Aramaic. You'll find the link to the study guide in the comments. And the best is yet to come. In the next chapters, you'll discover what could change everything for you. If insecurity were simply an emotion, it would disappear whenever circumstances improved. Yet many people continue feeling uncertain even after achieving success, building relationships, or overcoming enormous obstacles. This reveals something profound. Insecurity is rarely created by the present moment. More often, it is sustained by an inner narrative that quietly shapes every decision we make. This is exactly where the forgotten meaning of shlima begins to transform our understanding. Shlama, meaning wholeness, harmony, restoration, and complete inner peace does not merely calm anxious thoughts. It restores the center from which those thoughts arise. It addresses the root rather than the symptoms. Consider the many encounters of JESUS with people who had been rejected by society. Tax collectors, women considered outcasts, lepers, the blind, and the forgotten all carried more than physical suffering. They carried identities shaped by shame. Before restoring their circumstances, Jesus restored their dignity. He looked beyond labels and spoke to the person hidden beneath fear and rejection. This is one of the greatest differences between the world's definition of confidence and the ancient vision hidden inside shlama. Modern culture often teaches us to appear stronger than we feel. Jesus never encouraged pretending. He invited people to become whole. There is an enormous difference. Pretending builds a mask. Wholeness removes the need for one. Many Gnostic writings describe humanity as living in forgetfulness, separated from its true origin. Whether one approaches these texts historically or spiritually, they consistently point toward remembrance rather than accumulation. The soul does not become complete by collecting more recognition. It awakens by remembering what it has always been in relationship with the divine. Perhaps this explains why insecurity feels so exhausting. It forces us to perform endlessly, hoping that enough success will eventually silence self. Shlama offers another path. It teaches that your value does not begin with accomplishment. It begins with being. Think of a great tree rooted beside flowing water. Storms shake its branches. Winds strip away its leaves. Seasons change its appearance. Yet its roots remain secure because they reach a deeper source. Jesus continually invited his followers to develop this kind of inward rootedness. External circumstances may change, but the soul established in shlama remains anchored. Imagine approaching every conversation, every challenge, and every opportunity without needing constant approval. Imagine making decisions guided by wisdom instead of fear of criticism. That is the quiet strength hidden inside this ancient Aramaic word. Yet there is another layer that many people overlook completely. Insecurity not only changes how we think, it influences how we perceive God's presence, how we pray, and even how we recognize our own spiritual authority. That forgotten connection will lead us into one of the deepest teachings preserved in the life of Jesus. One of the greatest illusions created by insecurity is the belief that we must first become worthy before we can draw near to God. Countless people spend years believing they are too broken, too weak, too flawed, or too ordinary to experience the fullness of the divine. Yet the ministry of Jesus tells an entirely different story. Again and again, Jesus approached those whom society considered unworthy. He did not wait for perfection before offering restoration. He restored people first, allowing transformation to unfold afterward. This pattern reveals an extraordinary spiritual principle. Divine love does not begin where insecurity ends. Divine love is what begins dissolving insecurity. Here the deeper meaning of shlama, wholeness, restored harmony, and complete inner peace becomes unmistakable. It is not simply emotional comfort. It is the restoration of the relationship between the human soul and its divine source. When that relationship is remembered, the endless need for external validation gradually begins to fade. Many people unknowingly build their lives around invisible questions. Am I enough? Will I fail? What if others reject me? What if I disappoint everyone? These questions quietly shape careers, relationships, dreams, and even spiritual lives. Jesus consistently challenged those hidden questions without directly arguing against them. Instead, he invited people into a new identity. A person who knows they are rooted in the divine no longer measures their worth by applause or criticism. Success becomes meaningful but not addictive. Failure becomes instructive rather than defining. From a Gnostic perspective, this shift represents awakening. The false self lives through fear, comparison, and separation. The awakened self remembers its origin and begins acting from inner completeness. Shlama becomes more than a greeting or blessing. It becomes the lived experience of returning home within the soul. Relationships become healthier because they are no longer driven by desperation. Decisions become wiser because they arise from clarity rather than fear. Even prayer changes. Instead of begging from a place of lack, the heart begins communing from a place of trust. Imagine waking each morning without the constant pressure to prove yourself. Imagine speaking honestly without fearing every opinion. Imagine recognizing that your deepest security was never meant to come from circumstances, achievements, or acceptance, but from the quiet certainty that the divine has never abandoned the image placed within you. That is the hidden invitation of shlama. Not escape from life's challenges, but the restoration of an inner foundation that no challenge can destroy. Right now, you might be asking yourself, why am I only discovering this truth now? Don't worry, we thought about that. We're here to help you go deeper with a guide made for this journey. The link is in the comments. We're here to help you go deeper with a guide made for this journey. The link is in the comments. There comes a moment in every spiritual journey when we must choose which voice will define our lives. One voice repeats old fears, past failures, and the opinions of others. The other quietly reminds us of who we were before insecurity became part of our identity. Throughout his ministry, Jesus continually invited people to listen to that second voice. The forgotten Aramaic word, shlama, meaning wholeness, restored harmony, and complete inner peace, was never intended to become a beautiful greeting alone. It represented a condition of the soul. A person living in shlama no longer depends upon circumstances to feel secure because their foundation has shifted from the world to the divine source. His confidence did not come from public approval. It flowed from complete union with the Father. That same invitation extends to every soul willing to move beyond fear and rediscover its original wholeness. From a Gnostic perspective, insecurity is one of the deepest forms of forgetfulness. It convinces us that we are separated from our true identity. But the moment remembrance begins, fear slowly loses its authority. The soul no longer asks, "Am I enough?" It begins asking, "How can I express the divine life already placed within me. The greatest miracle hidden inside shlama may not be the removal of fear, but the restoration of identity. Once you know who you truly are, insecurity no longer controls your decisions, your relationships, or your future. Instead, you begin walking with quiet confidence, trusting that what is rooted in the divine cannot be taken away. We are just scratching the surface of this ancient power. Get ready, because in our next video, I will reveal even deeper Aramaic codes that unlock spiritual authority you've never imagined. Make sure you are subscribed and have notifications turned on so you don't miss this unfolding revelation. Transformation begins through repetition, awareness, and intention. For the next 21 days, set aside one quiet minute every morning before the distractions of the day begin. Close your eyes, breathe slowly, and pronounce shlama, meaning wholeness, restored harmony, and complete inner peace 7 times with calm and attention. As you speak the word, do not fight your insecurity. Simply observe it without judgment. Then imagine every repetition of shlama, gently restoring the parts of yourself that have been divided by fear, rejection, comparison, or self-doubt. Whenever insecurity appears during the day, pause before reacting. Take one conscious breath and whisper shlama once. Ask yourself, what would my true self do from a place of wholeness? This simple question begins changing decisions one moment at a time. Each evening, write down one situation where you chose courage instead of insecurity. Even the smallest step matters. Lasting transformation is built through faithful practice, not dramatic moments. It is a daily discipline of remembering the inner completeness that Jesus continually awakened in those who came to. Before you leave, if this message touched your heart or brought new understanding into your life, write the word restoration in the comments below. Your testimony may encourage someone else who is seeking healing and renewal. Thank you for sharing this moment of ancient wisdom with us. Until the next revelation, walk in peace, walk in freedom, and walk in the power of